Witnessing so much suffering in our lives and in the world seems a little bit pretentious to think or to even consider that suffering could be an illusion. But there's a good reason why to actually attempt to do this. And for this video, I'm going to use 4 of the most respectable and brilliant human attempts to solve this problem. We will be considering the solutions by Buddhism, Advaita Vedanta, which is part of Hinduism, mystical and contemplative Christianity, and Taoism. Buddhism identifies various forms of suffering, including physical pain, mental distress, and a pervasive sense of dissatisfaction in life. The whole structure of Buddhism is based on suffering, from understanding what is suffering, its causes, and of course, what the solution is. For that, in general terms, Buddhism says that suffering comes from the impermanence of our experience. So basically, if you think about it, there is nothing that is not all the time coming in and out, from the simple sensation to the bigger scheme of things, from planets to even galaxies. Everything is just pulsating in and out of life. Buddhism is stating that all this impermanence in life is actually what causes suffering, because we get attached to things. And the solution for suffering from the Buddhism point of view is to reduce the attachment we have to these temporary experiences, so the impermanence doesn't make us suffer. The solution for Buddhism to suffering is basically just letting go of attachment. Suffering in Advaita Vedanta is often linked to the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, what is called samsara. The experience of suffering is a consequence of the individual soul's identification with the transient and ever-changing aspects of existence. In Advaita Vedanta, they see the problem as an identification with an identity that is actually separated from the rest of the experience, which calls to what is also known as dualism. Advaita Vedanta addresses suffering as the identification with a separate self. According to Advaita Vedanta, suffering is based on the belief that we are separate, independent beings. The success in eradicating suffering in Advaita Vedanta is based on the self-realization and the understanding that this world is not dual, meaning that there is no experience of a subject and an object, but mostly everything is just happening spontaneously. And the recognition of this brings about the end of suffering. Suffering in Christian mysticism is often seen as part of the human condition and a means of spiritual purification. It may include both physical and spiritual struggles. Christian mysticism, by means of mystical experiences and contemplative practices, Christian mysticism believes that at some point humans can get to a state where we unite with God. In that state of union with God, there is no more suffering. Suffering in Taoism is often seen as a consequence of resisting the natural flow of the Tao. Going against the inherent spontaneity and simplicity of the Tao can lead to disharmony and suffering. For Taoism, is very important the continuous sense of flow and harmony with events and with the people around you. And they believe that it's actually when we try to resist or we fight against the way things are happening or the way people are behaving around us, it's only then when we suffer. If we would just harmonize our way of seeing the world and our actions consequently, then we will live in a state free from suffering. The conclusion from all these theories is that they don't agree that suffering is inherent in life, meaning that there is the only chance we have of being born and being in this world is to suffer. All these paths are based on the idea that there is a state that humans can reach where there is no suffering anymore. They acknowledge very much all the problems that we are having in our lives. They understand that part. And at the same time, they are pointing to a new state, or they at least claim that there is a possibility of living in this world and at the same time not being suffering. So they are not denying or suggesting you to neglect the problems in your life, and more like they are suggesting you certain systems on how to integrate these experiences of suffering and transform them into a completely new way of understanding the world, which will free you from the suffering that we usually feel as humans. For more information on physical pain, I made another video separate from this one that is related to this topic on how we don't necessarily have to suffer from the physical experience of pain. There is no possibility to access this state of not suffering unless you actually practice. You could read about it, you could try to intellectually understand it, and although that is very important to get inspiration and motivation, ultimately it's all achieved by means of practicing it. And meditation is the way you actually practice it. First sitting, and then over time you will be able to extend that level of awareness to all the activities in your life. First, you will need to sit because otherwise you are so distracted that it's impossible to notice things. But once you sit and practice and nurture these high states of attention and relaxation, you will be able to notice around yourself how your life opens. These 4 brilliant paths to liberation, to the end of suffering, all of them emphasize the importance of practice. Reading and trying to learn as if it was on school, and read a lot of books and get a lot of teaching in the regular sense, like an academic title. It would help you to get into it, but it won't be enough. The only way of realizing this ultimate state of freedom from suffering is just practice. And in order to achieve the state where you are always aware of your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, and every experience you're having, you need to practice by sitting. Start with small goals and achievable goals like 10-minute meditations, and try to sustain a high amount of quality of relaxation and attention in that meditations. And over time, just extend that quality of attention and relaxation to longer periods of time. Best practices are to do it in the morning or in the evening, but feel free to do it just anytime that feels right for you. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end, and I hope you find it useful.